Coming to you from Austin, Texas on this bright sunny day, it's Color Commentary, and we are Michael Petchek.
And Adrian Gonzalez.
So F&M this week, we both got wrecked by Domain Zoo. I mean, I'm not too proud to not admit that.
You know, right before we were talking before the show, Mike said, let's not bring up the fact that we lost to Domain Zoo. And yet, here we are, everyone. Here we are.
I mean, it's the most, I feel like it was one of the most interesting parts of the night.
Yes, it was. It was piloted expertly by Alex, not to be confused with Alex Ullman.
But yeah, no, the dude just, did he 4-0? Or did he wind up splitting?
No, he 3-1. He lost he lost somewhere.
Okay. But no, I played against him. Super tight play, and Domain Zoo is definitely one of those decks that sometimes doesn't work at all, and he was just firing on all cylinders that night.
Yeah.
I was telling Adrian before the show that he managed to pull off Squadron Hawk, get 3 Squadron Hawks, cast Brainstorm, put 2 Hawks back, cast the second one, get the 2 Hawks back into hand. So turns out Brainstorm is actually okay in like a handful of decks, but
I mean, in this one very specific scenario, it was good.
So tell us what you played.
I played Drake. I'm gonna play. I think I'm gonna play that deck until it gets banned. It's extremely good. It's good. And I'm thinking about how to innovate it. I'm wondering why more people don't play Boomerang. I want like one Boomerang in there because, and I don't know, Boomerang is sort of a pet card of mine. Like I always want it to be better than it actually is. But I feel like they're, I don't know. Boomerang might be.
Give us an example of when you want Boomerang.
Against Domain Zoo, it would have been awesome if I Boomeranged his land with an aura attached to it.
Yeah. I mean, because you can run Capsize, because some people run it as like a pseudo win con.
Well, and like Capsize is fine. I feel like Capsize and Boomerang do 2 very different things though, because when I have the Capsize, I'm almost always waiting to get the
Get buyback
to get buyback on it. But like if you have, since the deck plays like Archaeomancer, you could Boomerang early and then Boomerang again later. For like no cost basically.
I saw a mono blue Drake list that ran like a full suite of Boomerangs, and then I think I want to say like a Disperse, the one that hits non-land permanents. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Boomerang is a card that I've tried to play it in Modern Merfolk. But it's not good. I tried to play it in. I haven't really tried to play it that much in Pauper, but I want Boomerang to be a card because I like it a lot.
I mean, also if you play it, I mean, you get to run the sweet Rebecca Gay. I always forget how to pronounce her last name.
I say Guay. That is the promo, and I believe there was also a white border printing of it. But the ones I have are the Mirage ones, and then I have some of the white border of the original. And I actually really like the original Boomerang a lot.
What is the original?
It's like this red imp being like unsummoned, and then there's like a King Lear quote on it. and like I don't know, I just really, really, really like that Boomerang.
Yeah.
But yes, because of my quest for foils and promos, I will probably inevitably end up getting the 4 Rebecca Guay ones.
Yeah. But I played Grix's Metalcraft. I managed to win against Burn, which I was shocked by. Like,
I didn't even know there was a Burn player there, but I heard Tail.
Yeah, there were. He had made some changes. He was running like Brimstone Volley, which actually is very good if you can get it online.
You have to Morbid though, so the only scenario I can see that being really good is if you Searing Blaze and then Rending or Brimstone Volley, right?
Keldon Marauders.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, I think I chumped the Keldon Marauders, but then I got hit for 5 off of Brimstone Volley.
Well, but you can just even let the Keldon Marauders die on turn 3, and then or turn 4, and then you can Brimstone Volley still, and
yeah,
so that seems okay.
Yeah. But yeah, his burn list was a little different. He was running Thermo Alchemist, which I immediately like killed because
Thermo Alchemist is actually very, very good in that deck. I think
you have to answer it.
Yeah, I think people were initially a little underwhelmed or like didn't really see the potential for Thermo Alchemist, but I believe it has become a mainstay of the burn decks just because if left unchecked by itself, it will produce another 3 to 4 damage over the course of its lifetime.
Yeah. I think that, it's not a strict upgrade over Goblin Fireslinger because it is 1 more mana. But
I think it's a lot better.
It feels a lot better. It also like blocks like anything with less than 3 power really well on the ground.
You can sort of think of it as Seagate Oracle for burn in a way. Because Seagate Oracle generates actual card advantage, but I would argue that card generates virtual card advantage in that it will pump out damage over the course of the game, which is Burn's game plan.
Yeah. Also, like weird things, like if like you tap with it on your turn and they swing in, you can cast an instant, untap it, block something. I don't know. It seems very good.
It's a very, very versatile card.
I don't think it's like completely revolutionizing burn in any big way, but I definitely think that it's a good addition to the deck.
Me too.
Anything else kind of spicy that you saw? I don't know.
I was the only Drake deck, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, I mean that kind of fluctuates. Like some nights we'll have like 3 people on Drake, and then other nights it'll just be like, oh, it's just 1 person or none.
Well, when Drake gets banned, I'm going back to Pig Trinket, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I'm the Affinity guy. I played a lot of Affinity, but I love playing Pig Trinket.
Yeah, no,
I don't know what about it I like, but it's so fun. I also picked up 2 foil Chainer's Edicts on Friday, and so I'm real pumped to play with them.
I saw them. They look gorgeous. The old foils are like
original printing. That's the promo I don't want.
Yeah,
the original printing's so much better.
I mean, oh yeah, no, the promo has the same art, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's the modern card frame, and you know how I feel about those.
And it's got the really, I don't care for the F&M watermark, but that's personal. But enough F&M.
Yeah,
we've got spoilers to get into.
Yeah, we spent a lot longer on F&M than I thought we were going to spend.
Yeah. So first off, we got to talk about something. So we've been doing like spoilers, talking about new cards.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the chorus refrain thing that we've had is, this will be good if there's an energy payoff. Guess what we didn't get?
An energy payoff?
Yeah.
There's not a good one at common.
No. Which is a little disappointing. I mean...
Well, because like Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot is really sweet. You just can't do anything with the energy.
Yeah. So, I was just telling people online, we will, when Aether Revolt gets spoiled, if there is a good energy sink, we're going to have to go back and review like 5 or 6 more cards from Kaladesh.
Reevaluate the energy producing cards.
Yeah. But as of now, energy alone is not a good reason to run something.
Right, because by and large what we've seen with the energy cards is they are worse versions of cards that already exist, and then you pay energy to make them better. So it's just, why aren't you just running the better version of the card?
Yeah, so a little disappointed in that regard, but we still have one more set. It's going to be interesting to see, because Mark Rosewater has said that energy is not a parasitic mechanic, and it kind of looks like one to me. Like,
what do you mean by that?
Parasitic mechanic, the example people always go to is Arcane and Splice onto Arcane. The fact that those mechanics work nowhere outside of Kamigawa block, and they've never been revisited, and they kind of rely on something that if it's not there, it doesn't work. So energy, unless you have a way to pay it, to spend it, is just kind of do nothing.
Right.
So let's get in. We're going to go in Wooburg order, and I've actually alphabetized our list of cards we're discussing.
Wow,
so,
look at you.
Yeah, no, I put effort in. First up, Aviary Mechanic. 1 and a white for a Dwarf Artificer. So Artificers, as we go along, we already discussed Inventor's Goggles. It's the +1/+2 equipment that automatically attaches to any Artificer that comes into play. If that's appealing to you, remember, anytime I say Artificer, it could be bigger. But Aviary Mechanic, 1 and a white, Dwarf Artificer. When it enters the battlefield, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand, and it's a 2/2. So bears with upside. Pretty good.
It seems okay. The first thing I thought of was the Reality Acid style decks where they want to return those auras, or even just, I don't think Kitty really wants this card because I don't think they care about a 2/2 in there. Of course, Skyfisher. I'm not really sure how Acid Trip feels about it because I think Core Skyfisher is still better.
Well, it lacks evasion. The interesting thing about this one is it's a May trigger.
Right.
So this is actually just a bear with upside instead of bear with downside. So
also maybe not terrible in Cyborgs where you can bounce Thraben Inspector.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I don't know if that's really something that deck really wants to do. But I think there are applications for it, but I think it could go into an existing archetype. It's just going to depend how many of these bounce effects that those archetypes really want. If they want more than the 4 through 8 that are already provided by Core Skyfisher and Dreamstalker.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's like room for like a mono white kitty, like just kind of using this to bounce back like ETB artifacts or something like that.
I could certainly see that.
Like a little less aggressive than cyborgs, but still kind of like white Metalcraft deal.
We would have to go back and revisit the white cards that care about Metalcraft.
Yeah.
For me to really think through that, because Galvanic Blast I think is a big reason those decks are red also. I don't know. It's a very interesting card. We don't have a lot of these bounce your own creature or bounce your own permanent, I should say, effects in the format. So
yeah. It's I also do think it's interesting that it's a May, because usually this is used as a quote unquote drawback.
Right.
But moving on. Next up, we got Built to Last. 1 white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's an artifact creature, it gains indestructible until end of turn. Now, what do you feel about this? You're the artifact guy.
I'm not going to play this in Affinity. I guess you could play it in. We talk a lot about cyborgs just because I think we did it recently. But then I don't know. The only artifact creature that I can think of in there is Porcelain Legionnaire. Glinthawk isn't an artifact. Glinthawk Idol is an artifact.
Court Homunculus as well.
Yeah, I just don't see this really being a great card. Maybe you could play it in that deck. But all the creatures that are artifact creatures, like I don't want to play this in Affinity, because what am I going to save, a Frogmite or a Mirror Enforcer?
Well, my other big
I don't really care.
My other big thing about this is the +2/+2 on a lot of artifact creatures is just going to get them out of the range of like burn anyway.
Right.
So the indestructible thing only really matters against like targeted black removal, which isn't always the most common. Like mono black control still doesn't run that many copies of, like, I don't think they're running like the full playset of Victim of Night.
Yeah, and Victim of Night is probably the best black removal spell in the format. I would say it's better than Doomblade a lot of the time.
Yeah. So this is kind of narrow. It is interesting because like it's a pretty efficient pump spell in white, which kind of generally used to favor like the mass pump spells. And the fact that it is just 1 mana kind of appeals to me. So I have my eye on this one.
Yeah, any effect for 1 mana is something to consider.
Yeah. Next up, we got Fragmentize, previewed by friend of the show, Alex Ullman. 1 white, sorcery, destroy target artifact or enchantment with converted mana cost 4 or less.
I think this card is good. I think it's good. I'm not. However, I think the fact that it's a sorcery makes it a lot worse. And I'm not saying like, I'm not one of those people who's like, well, why don't you just play Nature's Claim or any of the green ones? If your deck's not green, your deck's not green.
Yeah. So
I think that white doesn't really have a lot of really efficient artifact removal like this, unless does Exile. I don't remember what Exile. Whatever. There are some effects in white that do this. This seems good. I don't know if white's going to play this over Dust to Dust.
Ooh,
right.
That's right.
Like, which is a 2-for-1, although it costs 3. I don't know. This it's gonna, for me, it's gonna have to remain to be seen for this card. I think it's fine.
I think its best use is as a Stone Rain against Affinity or another deck running artifact lands.
Like a 1 mana Stone Rain seems very, very strong. Because if I go turn 1, see the Synod pass, and you go turn 1, this destroy your land, like that's good.
Yeah,
like that's very good.
So
also destroys Frogmites and
it eats up a lot of smaller things. Like against Affinity, it could also take you off Springleaf Drum.
Yes,
because Affinity sometimes does get in those positions where, because it's functionally a 4 to 5 color deck, sometimes the mana doesn't quite line up.
Right. I do think this card is powerful, but I don't know. Every deck that I can think of that would want it already has some way to answer artifacts that I think fits more into what it's doing.
All right. Well, I do think it's worth noting it will show up in sideboards. Like, yes. I can almost guarantee that people are going to test this out because that 1 mana versus 2 is just so attractive.
Right.
Next up, we've got 9th Bridge Patrol. So 1 and a white, Dwarf Soldier, 1/1. And whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on 9th Bridge Patrol. Now, this is an upgrade on Unruly Mob, which triggered when a creature you control dies.
Right.
9th Bridge Patrol gets interesting in some weird kitty build.
Well, I was also thinking you could, I don't know why you would, but you could play this in a Drake deck, and then you could flicker, your cards infinitely and make him infinitely huge.
Yeah.
Which is a thing. It's a thing you can do, is all I'm saying.
Well, even just like ghostly flicker on like a couple things, including an Archaeomancer, and not going infinite. Or just like momentary blinking stuff. Like momentary blinking, a core Skyfisher puts 2 +1/+1 counters on this dude at instant speed.
Now, this could be a reality acid card because, as we talked about in our last episode with the Bant Acid Trip deck, one of those problems is that deck has problems closing out games. If you were playing this card plus momentary blink, I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching a little here, but it seems like it could be a thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it is just leaves battlefield because it just it incidentally grows larger.
It's also a soldier, which is not irrelevant.
No, it is not. That's not irrelevant. Actually, the soldiers deck with Core Skyfisher and Ballyrush Banneray.
Yeah, and
this is feeling better.
And Thraben Inspector, that. That's a thing. That's a thing.
Yeah, no, I think this one's very interesting, and it definitely does have a home somewhere. The lack of evasion is not a complete killer for this, but it would be better with some sort of evasion.
Yeah. Now, so the white cards are all really interesting.
Yeah. We're about to get into blue. Blue did not get a whole lot this set. I think we've got 3 cards here. One of them is very big. It's the last one, but
I kind of like this first one though. Dramatic Reversal, 1 and a blue, instant untap all non-land permanents you control.
So
that's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but
is there a combo deck somewhere that could use this?
I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking like maybe a deck with a bunch of mana rocks in it to have like big main 1, second main, like 2 mana, untap everything and get started again.
Signets are legal in the format.
They are. So unfortunately, the other mana rocks in the format are not dreadfully appealing.
Clue Stones.
Darksteel Ingot.
That weird cycle from Cons with the
banners.
Yeah.
The 3 colored
3 mana.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this has like weird combo potential. It also has arguably my favorite flavor text out of the set. It just says, "Nobody asked you to butt in, Jace, but thanks," from Chandra. I don't know. I just appreciate that because I feel like a lot of people agree with that. It's just like, no more Jace. We're done.
No one asked you, Jace.
Yeah. So next on the list, Failed Inspection. This one I actually added like 5 minutes before you got here because I was just looking through the spoiler and I hadn't seen anyone talking about it. 2 and 2 blue, instant, counter target spell, draw a card, discard a card.
I think 4 mana is what's going to kill this. We obviously play in a format with counterspell.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I don't think this card is completely irrelevant. Teachings is a toolbox deck, and while you're never going to be Teachings for this card specifically, I could see you casting the spell, maybe dumping a land or Chainer's Edict, and then generating a small bit of card advantage off of your counter spell. People play Exclude, and I think Exclude is way better.
Yeah.
But this card is kind of like a catch-all Exclude, right?
Yes, it doesn't have the restriction of creatures.
Right, but you counter something, and then you get to draw a card. Granted, you have to also discard a card with this one, but your Teachings. So maybe you discard a Think Twice or another Teachings, or a chain. You have all these flashback spells. So I don't think the card is 100% irrelevant. I think you could see it in a Teachings list.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's kind of like one of those like weird one-ofs, but it definitely was something that caught my eye as like being more interesting than I first thought it was, because there's something at Uncommon that I always forget the name of. I want to say it's Dismiss. It's just 2 and 2 blue, counter spell, draw card. And if we ever got that in Pauper, that would be playable. I feel.
But I don't think this is unplayable. I think it's only going to go in one deck.
Yeah, it's just a weird little thing. All right, I'm going to let you read the next one because I know you're excited about
Gear
it.
Seeker Serpent. That's the crowd cheering. Gear Seeker Serpent is a 7-mana 5/6 UU5. Gear Seeker Serpent costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control.
It's back.
That's interesting. That sounds a lot like a previous mechanic.
They just straight up printed a card with affinity for artifacts on it. After like publicly saying multiple times, it was one of their worst mistakes they ever made.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. Obviously, for blue and 5, it can't be blocked. I don't think this is a 4 of an Affinity. Affinity is an aggressive deck. But if you're an Affinity player and you've been around with the deck, you know there are some games where you draw like all your drums or you draw all your prophetic presence and you just don't have any gas. And I think that this card could be a way to close out some games. And it's also currently, I believe, the only creature that, other than Ulamog's Crusher, that just by itself kills Gurmag Angler.
Yeah.
So which is not insignificant. I think this card is going to go into Affinity. I'm thinking of replacing my Somber Hoverguards for it. That's like my least favorite threat in the deck.
Okay. I mean, you're replacing an evasive blue creature with a much larger and selectively evasive blue creature.
So the problem with Somber Hoverguard is it dies to literally everything.
All right,
and it can't even block very well.
Now let me fire back with this. Are you worried about taking out your only flyer in the deck?
No, and the reason is because there's only 3 flyers in the deck currently.
Okay.
So I'm not really losing a lot of Air Force. And I also love the flavor text on this card because it reminds me of me. It says, its collection is vast, yet each ship has a special place in its heart. It reminds me of my little promo collection.
No, I love that they actually were bold enough to just say, no, we're just going to print Affinity on a card.
So, a comparison you can make to this card is Quicksilver Behemoth, which is the 4/5 flyer. They got to return your hand every turn, which isn't terrible. I played against that on Friday, actually. That was a spicy thing I saw. And it basically gives it vigilance, which isn't awful, but I think that this card is much, much, much better.
I mean, just the ability to, when you're in a board stall, punch in for 5 every turn with, no way that they're blocking it.
And and the deck plays Fling. You could conceivably get 10 damage off this guy in 1 turn.
Yeah, so, I didn't even think about flinging him.
Also plays very well with Temur Battle Rage if you're into that particular build of the deck.
Ooh.
So I do think it goes into Affinity. I think it's going to be a 2 of. I think I'm going to take out some Somber Hoverguards. And we'll see. I'm a big proponent of the more threat heavy Affinity builds. I think they're a lot better than the more draw heavy ones.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. I'm very excited for this card.
All right. The next one, and we really should have prefaced this with an apology in case we mispronounce stuff, because I don't know how to pronounce some of these fictitious places.
I'm going to say this one is pronounced Dund.
Yeah, or Dund. I don't know.
I think the H is silent. Maybe Dund?
Dund?
I'm going to say Dund.
Dund Operative. We'll go with that. So it's 1 and a black for a 2/2 human rogue. As long as you control an artifact, Doomed Operative gets +1/+0 and has Death Touch.
So a 3/2. So okay, you just played the Grixis Metalcraft list. Would you play that in that deck?
I was about to say I think that's a perfectly fine home for this because it's aggressive and it's also a very lethal blocker. It eats stuff like Gurmag Angler, which that deck kind of has a problem dealing with because most of your threats aren't that big. I definitely like this. The art's also gorgeous on it. I really like the art. Ms. Villano has been giving us some pretty quality stuff in this set. But no, I'm definitely like interested in this, especially because Black didn't used to get bears with upside. They used to get bears with downside. So I'm pretty pumped for this.
Yeah.
Not really much to say. Like it's just simply like
it's a 3/2 Death Toucher for 2.
Yeah, it's an aggressive card.
And so many decks in Pauper play the artifact lands anyway as support against Wrenchmind. So I yeah, it's good.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like it could find a home.
You could even put it into the mono black aggro deck and just play 4
seats or no
vaults. Play 4 vaults and call it a day. Also, that deck might also play Bone Splitter, so you might go in there too. That's not necessarily a tier 1 deck by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I think that deck's objectively bad. But
that turned around very quickly from
it's a terrible deck, actually. Any deck that's like Dark Ritual, 3 creatures that all die to 1 Electrickery, I'm like, all right, buddy.
Okay. Tell us how you really feel, though.
I really think that deck's bad.
All right. Next on the list is Dukara Scavenger, which is a crocodile, which immediately endears it to me because they're terrifying animals in the real world.
It's a crocodile. I see it now. It's got a person in its mouth.
I think it's a servo or like a golem of some sort.
It looks like it has a little wheel where its feet should be.
Yeah. So Dukara Scavenger is 5 and a black for a 4/6, so not the best stats. But when it enters the battlefield, you may put target artifact or creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So this is interesting.
Top of your library is a lot worse than in your hand.
Yes,
because Mortuary Mire does this for free.
Mortuary Mire doesn't hit artifacts though.
Okay,
and that's the interesting part of this is the fact that black does not get artifact recursion.
They have 2 in this set.
Yeah, they have 2 pieces in this set. The other one we've already spoken about, Fortuitous Find.
Right.
But this has interest for me. A 4/6 kind of is a wall in this format.
4/6 is pretty good.
There's not much that gets by it. 6 mana is a pretty hefty price, though. Like, this only fits really in a control deck where you can reliably get to 6 mana. There's no way to reduce that cost. It's just always going to be 6 mana.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's not like anything stellar, but it is unique, and that's the kind of thing where there might be a deck that wants late game artifact recursion in black.
Yeah, you said something about teachings in case they accidentally lose their pristine talisman or.
Yeah, I mean, there's situations like turn 1 duress against them. They could lose the talisman, and that it's not unwinnable by any stretch, but I don't know. I'm just thinking there is a role for this because it's got a good body for Pauper. It is very expensive. So I don't know. This again is one of those ones where I look at it and I'm like, this might have a home. So I just want to talk about it in case.
Right.
Next, we're going into some weird jank.
Now, I just realized that this next card is actually a combo with Dramatic Reversal.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So this is Night Market Lookout. So it's 1 black for a 1/1 human rogue. Whenever Night Market Lookout becomes tapped, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Now, the sort of application for this in Limited is notably the fact that this can crew vehicles.
Right.
And drain your opponent for 1.
And what we have in Pauper is Springleaf Drum.
Springleaf Drum. Hear me out. Viridian Longbow.
Yeah, Springleaf Drum, Viridian Longbow. Presence of Gond, perhaps.
Now you've lost me. You've lost me. We've gone too far. But in all seriousness, this looks really interesting to me. I don't think it has a combo home, but we're getting very close to a high density of the pulse tracker effects. The creatures that are cheap, but when they attack, they'll ping your opponent for 1. This one's interesting because it's just when it gets tapped. Now, I don't think there's a way to put this in Freed from the Real. But
no, that deck has better outs than this guy.
I don't know. It's an interesting card, especially because it's when it becomes tapped versus Pulse Tracker is a 1/1 for 1. When it attacks, your opponent loses 1 life, and that gets put in the mono black aggro plans. But this one seems kind of more weird combo-y or grindy control deck where you have another way to tap this rather than attacking.
Right.
Because it's kind of outclassed immediately.
Or, I mean, if vehicles becomes a deck,
Yeah. We'll get there. Don't worry. I don't know. Again, this kind of falls into I don't think it's busted, but I think it's interesting enough where we would be wrong not to talk about it.
Right.
Next up, we got Subtle Strike, 1 and a black, instant, choose 1 or both. The best way you can phrase a modal spell. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, or I guess, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
Doesn't seem terrible.
Yeah,
I don't know what deck this would go into, but it doesn't seem terrible.
Yeah, it's just the fact that you can get both, like one in a black, kill your X1, and like
I think I'd just
grow
be
my dude.
I think I'd just be a little worried. Like this feels mostly like a combat trick, right? You attack, they block. You give their guy -1/-1. You give your guy +1/+1. You end up being, a 2-power toughness difference. The thing is though, like decks like Mono Black Control, which might be a contender to play this because it's a very creature heavy deck. I don't think really needs this.
Yeah,
it seems cool, but I don't know if the effect is impactful enough.
Yeah, it's a pretty low impact spell, but I do feel the fact you can choose both.
Yeah, like that always seems cool.
Yeah, it makes it much more like relevant. Like you could do both of these things and really, have a big effect on the board.
You used to have to pay to do both in Twine.
Yep. Actually, recently, God, I already forgot the mechanic name. There was a mechanic in the last set in Eldritch Moon that I'm completely blanking on the name that let you entwine multiple times for different modes.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I
Escalate or whatever.
Escalate, there we go.
Okay, it is Escalate. Okay.
Yeah, wow. Not really a great sign when I don't remember the mechanic name.
I mean, I don't think, are there any Escalate cards that we are seeing play in the format? I don't think so.
No, there are 3 that are legal, and all of them were pretty unanimously decided as bad.
Okay, then that's why. That's why you don't remember the mechanic.
All right, let's move into red. Now, we're going to start with Built to Smash, which is the cousin of Built to Last.
And actually, it's the same robot.
Yeah.
Robots. I think it's actually the same 2 robots.
Well, I think its roles are reversed.
Gotcha.
So, Built to Smash, 1 red, target attacking creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. If it's an artifact creature, it gains trample until end of turn. Oh boy, Mono Red Heroic has a new toy.
Yeah, it's just better than the color shifted giant growth, right? Because sometimes it'll give the creature trample, although I cannot think of any artifact creatures in the deck that would actually play this card.
I guess that's true. The other interesting thing is it's only an attacking creature. So
I've missed that actually.
Yeah, it's this weird situation of you can't really use this to save your creature on your opponent's turn.
Okay, that actually changes it a lot. Because I was thinking you could play this in Delver Fiend.
They straight up don't play any artifacts.
No, yeah. None of them.
But actually just the +3/+3, like.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then, like, do they really need brute force 5+?
Yeah.
I don't even know if they play that card 100% of the time. I also didn't realize it was only for attacking creatures.
Yeah, no, that does make it less attractive. But again, maybe some sort of Boros Metalcraft deal. This could be useful.
Well, imagine if you cast it on Porcelain Legionnaire, right? Like that's strong. That's strong.
A 6/4 first strike.
Yeah, that seems with trample.
With trample? Oh, that's gross.
That doesn't seem too bad.
That's actually an upsetting thing to think about. So you can't chump this in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Wow, that's. Yeah. Okay, that could be a sweet combat trick if you're playing a deck with Porcelain Legionnaire.
Yeah.
That seems actually pretty legit. All right. This next one. This is arguably the best card, apart from Gearseeker Serpent, in the entire set.
You think it's that good? All right, whatever.
I do.
Well, why don't you take it away and I'll take the next one.
All right. Cathartic Reunion. 1 in a red, sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Cathartic Reunion, discard 2 cards, draw 3. Okay. So
what, Mike?
It's a strictly better Tormenting Voice.
Okay, so is it? And the reason I asked that is because do you always want to be discarding 2 cards? And if the answer is yes, then yes, sure.
I guess me saying strictly better is fallacious. I will admit that. It is a bigger Tormenting Voice.
Right.
So
I would say that 9 times out of 10 this is going to be better. Because like in Modern, I could see you maybe not wanting to discard 2 cards.
Yeah.
In Dredge. But in Pauper, like I think the biggest problem with Tormenting Voice and the reason, like this is basically Faithless Looting almost. It's 1 less card from Faithless Looting. But it's almost the same effect.
Yeah.
The problem with Tormenting Voice is that it didn't let you discard Crusher and Dragon's Breath.
Yes, and I think like that's the easy spot to put this is just say, oh, this slots directly into Black-Red Reanimator, which it does. Like, this turn 1 can just, force out, get everything set up. Or this turn 2, sorry, can just get everything set up. Like, having the ability to discard 2 things.
If you have Sandstone Needle, you could just win on turn 2, right? Because you turn 1 Sandstone Needle, turn 2 Swamp. Oh,
you're still 1 mana shy.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, you have to play Lotus Petal too, I guess.
Yeah, and then you're getting into like
Magic Christmas Land a little. Okay, I mean, I'm just saying it. I'm just saying.
To be fair, that deck does have a decent amount of Magical Christmas Land just in general.
Yeah.
But let me hit you with something else. The discard and draw are separate, so that you could dredge something that you pitch.
Right. That's the thing, right? Is that you could pitch Stinkweed Imp and then dredge it back and. Yeah, it's pretty good.
You could pitch Stinkweed Imp, dredge for 5, draw 2.
2 Stinkweed Imps.
Ho. At that point, like you've got to have something real good that you were trying to get. But other people pointed out this in like some sort of blue-red control deck, just as a way to like refill your hand late game when you're like drawing into dead cards.
Yeah, sure. That seems fine.
I don't know. I just think it's very, very efficient for what it is. I think mono red actually weirdly does not want one of its better card draw spells.
No, I do think this is a good card.
I think it definitely needs like a support color where it can draw up, because mono red's issue is it's so often hellbent. Right. And especially in matchups like against mono black where you can't really afford to keep lands in hand because Chittering Rats is just going to make you get time walked if you're behind. I don't know. I think this is a very good card and is honestly up there for my favorite card out of this set. You want to hit us with this next one?
Yeah, the next one is Reckless Fireweaver, which is 1 and a red for a 1/3. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Reckless Fireweaver deals 1 damage to each opponent. Combo. Now, I don't think this is going into straight up affinity. I could see this in the more draw heavy list that combos with Atog, Fling, like always tries to combo with Atog, Fling, Disciple. This is kind of another Disciple of the Vault because once you have both of them, you have one that does something when an artifact leaves and one that does something when an artifact enters. So
the interesting thing about this is it turns your lands into pingers.
Right. Like I think this could be a good card. I don't really know what it's going to go into its own sort of deck. Would you play this in Grixis Metalcraft? Or is it just not going to get enough pings, you think?
I'm just thinking through the list. There's 12 artifact lands to hit and 16 artifacts if you count Prof Prisms. Maybe the fact it's a 1/3 for 2, that's a very like nice body.
Yeah,
it's still boltable, but it's not like,
well, it's gonna kill a lot of stuff, or it's gonna block a lot of stuff and maybe kill a lot of stuff. And I keep going back to this. Seagate Oracle stats are relevant.
Yeah, 1/3 is actually a very good defensive body in this format because it kind of stonewalls any 1/1s or X1s really on the ground and can definitely buy you some time. So maybe this is like part of like a more eggs-like version of Affinity.
Yeah, like I'm not totally out to this. I think this card is good. I think you're going to have to build a deck that really leverages its, unlike Thermo Alchemist, which is I think the easiest card to compare this to. It doesn't just go into an existing archetype. You're going to have to sort of build around it to leverage its ability, which I think is very powerful. Yeah,
I mean, you could definitely just throw this in Affinity. I don't think it's going to, up your percentage points in most matchups dreadfully much.
So that's the thing about Affinity, right? Is that we've talked about it before. Affinity is very versatile. You can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So try it out if you want. I don't think it's a better threat than a lot of the other cards. The only card I could even think about taking out would be like Frogmite, and Frogmite's good because it's free.
Yeah.
So.
All right, next up, we've got Spireside Infiltrator.
And I don't know why you put this card in here.
2 and a red, whenever it becomes tapped, deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Oh, I misread
3/2.
it. I thought it was only when it entered the battlefield. Never mind, I stand corrected. So this is obviously meant to crew vehicles also.
Yes. It's a 3/2, which is like an okay body for 3 mana in red. They've been getting closer to, breaking parity on vanilla creatures for red.
So the only problem I could see with it is that we already don't play Boggart Brute, which is this card with evasion.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that this was kind of a reprint.
Well, it's not really. Boggart Brute's a 3/2 for 3 with menace.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm just saying, like, we already have an evasive creature with these stats in red that already doesn't see play. So I don't know if this will go straight into like a red Sly style deck, but maybe like what we talked about earlier with the black card that does the same thing. There might be some combo potential here.
Yeah, no, I think that's where I was going with this. Is just it's an interesting effect. You know, someone could figure out a way to leverage this. I can't figure out a combo with it, but I don't know. It's definitely an interesting option.
Yeah. Anything that does something when it's tapped is interesting.
Yeah. How about you take this next one again? Because this one's another one that's kind of relevant to your interests.
I don't think it's very good, actually. It's a Welding Sparks. Welding Sparks is one, a red, and then 2 colorless. It does X damage to target creature where X is 3 plus the number of artifacts you control. So we're looking at a big burn spell that only hits creatures.
Yes.
And is not as mana efficient as Flame Slash.
Yes. Although Flame Slash 4 misses like a couple of Affinity's big problem creatures. Fangren Marauder.
That's true. This does kill Fangren Marauder.
Mm-hmm.
But it kills Gurmag Angler. I'm just not really a big fan of it because it costs 3 mana.
So what do you think about this in like a kitty deck? I don't know. Like it can kill very large threats for 3 mana.
Know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
In a color that really doesn't have that much like burn is usually, or red based decks are usually like 2 for 1ing themselves on the bigger threats,
right? Just
to get them out of there. So I don't know. It's kind of, I think you could see some play. Moving on. Green. Larger than life. 1 and a green, sorcery, target creature gets +4/+4, gains trample until end of turn.
It's not completely irrelevant. Trample makes it good.
It's a strict upgrade to Predator Strike,
right.
Which was +3/+3 in trample. Also sorcery speed. People have talked about this in Infect.
You could even, yeah, sure. I mean, sure. So the problem with Infect and Pauper is I don't think there's enough pump spells. I think there's not enough creatures.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much is actually going to help that deck. I also don't really know if Stompy's going to want it, because Stompy already has cards like Groundswell, which are way better. I mean, both decks already have Groundswell.
Yeah. But, the sorcery speed is kind of a killer for this.
Yeah. Trample is good.
Yes.
Like Trample is very good.
Just the fact that you can't like spring it on your opponent, like your opponent makes what they think is a good block, and then you go, gotcha, getting in for 4.
Yeah, but like this card isn't Vines of the Vastwood by any means.
No, it is certainly not. I don't know. I threw it in there. People were talking about it in Infect, which is kind of one of those fringe decks that people do care about.
I lost to Mono Green Infect the other day.
Did you?
On Moto, yeah.
Ugh.
Me and the embarrassing losses lately. Yikes.
Losing to all the tier 3 stuff. All right. That enough said about that. We can get off the Infect train before people get angry about it. Next up is Takedown.
This is a good card.
Yeah.
Also very RLVNT.
Yeah. So 1 green, sorcery, choose 1. Takedown does 4 damage to target creature with flying, or Takedown does 1 damage to each creature with flying.
The Drake flew true, the arrow flew truer is the flavored text.
Which a bunch of people in the Pauper community on Twitter made jokes about this, myself included. You know, it's a little on the nose given our current situation with the meta, but we were talking about this beforehand, and you mentioned Aerial Volley.
Yeah, Aerial Volley is an instant for G that does 3 damage divided as you choose among any creatures with flying. So this card is a little more versatile. So Mike, you pointed out this kills Spire Golem. Aerial Volley does not kill Spire Golem, and its other mode functions as Electrickery.
Yeah.
So it's not. It really isn't bad. I just don't know how I feel about it being a sorcery.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that has me hesitant about this, just replacing Aerial Volley. Aerial Volley does also kill a Fairy and a Delver, because let's be real, the most relevant flying hate cards are for the Delver matchup.
And I think that's why Aerial Volley is seeing so much play. Aerial Volley also kills Drake, for what it's worth, too.
This can as well. It can't do it at instant speed, which is a big drawback. Because the Drake deck can combo off on 1 turn. Sometimes you don't get that chance to cast sorceries to deal with it. So I don't know.
I think it's a decent card. I think it'll get a lot better when Drake rotates.
Yes. I mean, the dream...
Or gets banned, rotates.
The dream with this is obviously, your opponent plays out a bunch of fairies and Delver, and you just wrath the board on their side.
Right. Green doesn't have an Electricity, so this seems fine. But I also, I just really like Aerial Volley, because Aerial Volley is still like a 3-for-1 sometimes.
Yeah.
It's almost always a 2-for-1.
Yeah, I would say, the only, the biggest upside this has is a wide, small board, and the fact it kills Spire Golem. And to be fair, green decks can already run stuff like Gleeful Sabotage in the board if they want to deal with Spire Golem.
Right.
So
it's a cool card. I don't know if it will replace the existing cards.
All right. The next one. This is my favorite card from the set, not for gameplay purposes, but because of the art. Accomplished Automaton. I posted this with the caption, "Don't talk to me or my tiny son ever again," because the art it's this golem, and then it's got a tiny version of itself sitting on its shoulder, which I think is hilarious and adorable. This guy is a strict upgrade of Hexplate Golem.
Which also, it was putting the land on itself. It's cute too. No.
So Hexplate Golem was 7 mana for a 5/7. The only difference here is this one's a construct instead of a golem, and it has Fabricate 1. Just as a reminder, Fabricate 1, when this creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it, or create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So it's 7 mana. 7 mana is a magical number when it's all colorless, because that's Tron mana.
Right.
So I could see this possibly being played in Tron as turn 3 off natural Tron. You go either 6/8, or if your opponent's playing black, 5/7 with Edict Protection.
Okay, that's not irrelevant. That's actually pretty good. I didn't think about that. First when I was looking at it, I was like, what are you talking about, Mike? But that actually is a conceivable scenario.
Just the fact that it can come with its own Edict Protection or just be slightly bigger, I really like on a big fat creature that's all colorless mana. Also, again, I love the art. I don't know why, but it just makes me laugh. I don't know. I have a very deep soft spot for cute robots.
Also, when this dies, it triggers Fangren Marauder, so
yeah, that's not irrelevant. I still think that Tron's best win con in terms of big colorless threats is still Crusher.
Yeah, well, it's an 8/8 with Annihilator, so
yeah, real hard to deal with that for most decks. Moving on, I've got one in here that I don't know. It just kind of, it's not good, but I wanted to mention it. Consulate Skygate, 2 colorless for an 0/4 defender with reach. I don't know.
And then we're gonna move on to the next card. I mean, defender combo.
I don't know. It blocks most flyers.
I think you're really reaching on this one.
Yeah, this one.
Get it?
Reaching.
Most decks don't want an 0/4 that blocks creatures with flying.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now that being said, it has some merit, right? It's a colorless creature. It goes in any deck. That's a thing. That's not. No, Mike, you did good. But I also would like to bring up One-Eyed Scarecrow, which goes all flying creatures -1/-0.
Oh hell,
which is also super good.
That's probably actually better than this. Okay, I included a bad card.
No, Mike, you did good. Muffin.
All right, well, we got the next one, which you also think is bad. Eager Construct.
To be fair, you didn't read it, so
yeah, that is fair. So I read this slightly differently. Eager Construct, 2 colorless for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, each player may scry 1. I thought it was you scry 1.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. But each player, but like you said earlier, each player scrying 1, maybe not the end of the world. You still do get the scry, and it is a colorless bear.
Yeah. Lots of bears in this review, I've noticed. We're just getting 2 mana for 2/2s with upside seems to be pretty pertinent in this set.
That being said, I don't think this will see constructed play.
No. Also, it's just a cute robot. I like my robots.
Maybe that's why it's in here.
Just be glad that we don't have Filigree Familiar at common, because I would have ranted about that for 10 minutes.
That actually is a good card, though.
Yeah, it's a mini Solemn Simulacrum.
Yeah, that card is good. That would have been awesome in Pauper.
All right. But getting on to more interesting cards. Inventor's Goggles, 1 colorless, artifact equipment, equipped creature gets +1/+2. Whenever an artificer enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach Inventor's Goggles to it, equip 2.
I'm going to be getting this in foil as well because of the synergy with Carapace Forger. I don't think this replaces Flare Husk, and we also didn't really see any artificers in this set that are going to go into Affinity.
Yep. Spot on in my mind. I think that the ability to have a 5/6 on turn 2 is too good to ignore. I'm going to be honest, I don't think that this is going to see a whole lot of play.
I mean, if they come out with some pretty good artificers next set, sure.
Yeah.
I think Carapace Forger was obviously never meant to play with artifact lands. So that's a thing that you could think about too. Like there might be another creature next set that was also not intended to be that strong, but is because of the way Affinity exists in Pauper.
Yeah. Again, that's why we got a creature with affinity for artifacts. A patently busted ability is just the fact that we don't have artifact lands in the standard or this limited environment. So,
or even in modern,
yeah. Like their only concerns is, we can check and see if it breaks Legacy, or we can check and see if it breaks Pauper.
I don't think they ever check that. I don't know if they even really check modern. I think they mostly care about standard and limited.
Yeah. All right. I'm sad this came so late in our review. The next one was appropriate because everyone loves getting on the hype train, and we got a literal hype train. Renegade Freighter is a 4/3 for 3 colorless, and it's an artifact vehicle, so it is not a creature. We went over crew last time. So this guy's got crew 2. Tap any number of creatures you control the power 2 or more. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. And whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn.
It's not terrible.
Well, it's a 3-mana 5/4 on the attack.
That also costs you a creature or 2.
All right. Now, admittedly, I was not the one who thought of this. I saw it on Twitter. It plays decently with Nettle Sentinel.
That's true because you can untap. You can crew this vehicle with the Nettle Sentinel and then cast a green spell and untap the Nettle Sentinel and still attack with both.
Yeah. This along with Nettle Sentinel carrying like Rancor, swing for 9 on turn 4.
It's not terrible. My only concern is that it costs 3 mana.
Yeah, 3 mana might be a little tricky for Stompy to get to all the time.
And I don't think Elves really wants this card.
Elves does not want this card. If Elves wants a big colorless finisher, again, they just get Crusher.
Right.
Like, that just seems better in my mind. But this is really efficient. Also, it can be any number of creatures, so maybe some sort of, like, small white aggro deck.
Yes. Maybe
like Soul Sisters.
Or Soul Sisters.
Okay. Cyborg, I guess, yeah, because this turns Court Homunculus into a 5/4.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gonna maybe see play.
I'm a little bit more positive on this just because I like that very aggressive stat line.
Right.
The fact that like in Soul Sisters you don't really want to be attacking with Soul's Attendant and Soul Warden. The fact that they can just kind of get in the train and drive it and bash in.
The Soul Sister train. The Soul Train. Oh my god.
Oh man. All right, it's official. If anyone runs this in Soul Sisters, you immediately need to name your deck Soul Train. Otherwise, I will come to your house and fight you.
Catch these hands.
Yeah, you can catch these hands free this Sunday. Next up, we've got a weird little dude.
I like it.
You want to take this one?
It's self-assembler. It's a artifact creature, assembly-worker. As Mike told me on Friday, you actually cannot have 2 named creature. What is it?
So with subtypes, if they're 2 separate words, they're 2 separate types. So if there was a space in the middle, assembly would be a creature type and worker would be a creature type.
That's weird. So when self-assembler enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an assembly worker creature card specifically. So yes. no on the nameless inversion. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is good because it's
also worth mentioning. It's a 5 mana colorless for a 4/4.
Right. So, we were talking about maybe putting this in Tron as a kind of Aurochs or Avarax that's completely colorless, so it's easier to replace. It does lose the trample and it does lose the haste, but it is a 4/4 creature. Unfortunately, it is the only thing it can tutor.
Yeah.
Still, because the only other creature, the actual creature assembly worker, which is the only other assembly worker, is an uncommon.
Which is I believe, a 1/1 for 2, 2/2 for 2 that can tap to give another assembly worker +1/+1.
Right. It's not even very good, honestly.
It's Mishra's factory factory, not workshop. Workshop's the busted one.
Yeah, it's
factory's the slightly less busted one.
Factory's still good.
It's still very good. It was kind of weird that it specifically says assembly worker creature card, and this was the only one in the set. Like, I did a triple check on this to make sure.
I don't know what they're afraid of it finding. It cannot find, but they've worded it in a way that it cannot find the changeling cards. Well, actually, it can find the creature changeling.
It can find creature changelings. The interesting thing here is, if they just wanted it to get itself, they could have just said, search your library for a card named Self-Assembler. So maybe we see something relevant in Aether Revolt.
Right. That's the hope.
If this can tutor like 2 other targets, which have a toolboxy aspect to them, this could see play somewhere.
Yes.
I think as it stands, it's a very slow...
And even, not even counting just the commons, this is the only assembly worker in the set.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird. Last on our list, Workshop Assistant, 3 colorless, 1/2, artifact creature construct. When it dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand.
So it's a slightly worse mirror retriever. Worse in that it costs 1 more. Excuse me. Also, maybe having 1 more toughness is worse for a card you want to die.
Yeah. It's also comparable to Junk Diver, though that had flying and was a 1/1.
And was a rare.
And was a rare. Yeah. How the times have changed.
Yeah. But it's not a bad card. That we mentioned some combo potential with this. If you had a triple Ethereum Sculptor, 2 of these, and a Disciple of the Vault.
This is we're getting into like Magical Christmas Lands. Yeah,
I mean, there is some combo potential here. Any card that like a card in colorless that has this effect that you could potentially get for free.
I don't know.
It's not irrelevant.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a lot of this set is kind of like cards where we're just like, this seems like it could be good with enough support. There's a couple slam dunks in this set. Like, I think that Gearseeker Serpent is a bona fide slam dunk for Affinity. And I don't think there's any way you can argue it isn't. I think Cathartic Reunion, again, really good slam dunk for the decks that want it. But I feel like a lot of this is kind of like we didn't touch on any of the energy cards because, again, like, we don't have a good payoff for them.
Right, and none of them are very good by themselves.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm interested to see, like...
Well, the Puzzle Knots are okay.
The Puzzle Knots... Well, not all those produce energy either.
Right.
They're all kind of varied as to what they do. I'm very hopeful. I really like the fact that some of these commons are more complex than I would have expected from a New World Order set. As we mentioned before, I believe this is the first set that started life as a 2-set design.
Right.
The Shadows over Innistrad block and Battle for Zendikar were originally part of the same 3-set block. So if this is indicative of like power level and complexity that they're willing to give it common, I feel good. Like, I feel really positive about the future. Any thoughts, Adrian?
I also feel positive. No, I'm just looking at the list of cards. Yeah. It's pretty exciting. This is a good set. I like it a lot more than I like Shadows or Eldritch Moon or even Battle. I don't know. This is probably the best. This is probably one of the sets I've been most excited for since
Cons.
Yeah, I was gonna say Cons.
Yeah, because
which was a long time ago now.
Cons
actually
was big for our format with the gain lands.
Cons was a huge block. What was right after Cons? I've already forgotten. Oh, Battle. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like Battle very much, although I am now a Legacy Eldrazi player.
But that was kind of the thing. Like, it gave one very specific thing that actually was good enough to cause issues in Modern.
I mean, there are some very good playables in the Shadows block too. Obviously, Thraben Inspector has become a format.
I wouldn't
staple?
say pseudo staple. Like, it definitely shows up more than most cards from recent sets.
There have been a lot of decent cards recently. Although I don't know how much from Kaladesh we'll actually see play. It does seem that there are an appropriate level of playables.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's two that I think are definite, like, slam dunk playables, and compare with like Oath of the Gatewatch. There is one card in that set that is a playable.
Which one was it?
Pulse of Marasa.
That's a good card, though.
It's a good card, but can you name me one other common?
We said that, but I would like to say that I think that the fact that we had one playable out of a set is sometimes more than other formats get. So now that being said, the new dual lands do see play in Modern. Because
they definitely will.
Because they already do, because they're more tutorable lands. So
we forgot to mention something. The intro decks, they got replaced. They now have these Planeswalker decks.
Right.
The only relevant part out of them for us is the fact that there was that split cycle of 10 duels, which were functional reprints of the gates that were printed. The first 5, the allied ones, showed up in Oath of the Gatewatch, and the other 5 showed up in Shadows. They include like Foul Orchard, Stone Quarry. They were originally uncommon. They have been shifted down to common.
Not all of them, though, right?
We only saw 2, I think.
Yeah.
But they have said that their plan is to use this product as a way to keep those ETB tapped duels in Standard in perpetuity. So,
but they're not gain lands, unfortunately.
They're not gain lands. Worth mentioning because those products will be released online. So I don't know, if you need your third pair of like ETB tap duels, I guess you got it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wanted to make sure that it was out there, people knew,
right?
All that good stuff. You wanna take us out?
Yes, I'll take us out, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. Mike and I will be playing at the Kaladesh pre-release on the weekend of the 25th at Pat's Games in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
We're going to be playing Two-Headed Giant that Sunday. I believe the tournament starts around 3 o'clock, so we'll be doing the podcast, and we'll be headed straight over there. Feel free, if you're in the area, stop by, play some games, say hi. Our favorite LGS, certainly.
Yep. Yeah. No, if you see us and you want to say hi, don't worry. We're pretty friendly people.
Might even give you a business card.
All right. So
that's all that we have for this week. Special thanks to Pat's Games, of course, for giving us a place to play a weekly popper. Special thanks to L for the use of his song Quantitative as our theme music. You can find that track and other great tunes on his SoundCloud under the name LLL. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. We're also on iTunes, and if you subscribe there, please leave us a written review because that will really help us out. If you have an idea for a discussion topic or a deck list you'd like us to discuss, you can either use the contact form on our website or email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. I'm Adrian Gonzalez.
I'm Michael Petchek.
And we're signing off for Color Commentary.